Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Today I am very excited to be able to share with you an unboxing and my initial thoughts for Talisman Alliances Fate Beckons, which was sent to me for review by Avalon Hill thanks to friend of the channel and all-round superstar Kent Caliber. This is the first expansion for the 5th edition of the Magical Quest game and Avalon Hill's first crack at expanding on the core experience. They could have gone for a quick remake of an existing popular expansion, but they have immediately decided to flex their creative muscles to bring us something completely new. As a result, what we have here is the first ever cooperative expansion for Talisman. Now, there was a cooperative scenario in the Blood Moon Werewolf expansion for 4th edition, but by all accounts that wasn't particularly amazing, and Fate Beckons is a different beast altogether, an expansion built from the ground up exclusively for co-op play. And that's co-op play, not solo play. The front of the box says the expansion is for 2 to 6 players, the same as the base game, suggesting you will need at least 2 characters in play. Of course, there is nothing stopping you from playing solo, controlling 2 characters, but not everyone is keen on doing that, so it is something to be aware of. Additionally, this expansion is introducing a campaign system, of sorts, with legacy-style elements. It's not true legacy, you won't be ripping up cards and sticking stickers, you won't end up with a transformed board game that is something that tells the unique tale of your personal journey through it, and you will be able to reset the expansion to its unplayed condition to play it again or pass it on to someone else. But there are secrets, envelopes and boxes of surprise goodies that you will get to open as you work your way through 5 separate missions, called trials, which loosely link together to form a single narrative. And to be clear, in this video, I am going to be keeping things as spoiler free as possible, but there will be a follow-up video where I'm going to bust open every secret for those people who don't care about being surprised and just want to know exactly what they are getting for their money. So let's start at the front cover. Pretty traditional sort of adventure game arrangement here, with our group of heroes completely surrounded, but ready to bring the smackdown. No real spoilers, although some of the approaching enemies sure don't look like anything we have encountered in the base game. There is clearly a Minotaur and a Centaur there for a start. On the reverse we have a full contents list, which does its best to tell you exactly what you are getting without giving the game away. There is a rules book, 30 starting game cards, a Doom track with tracker token, 24 strength and craft tokens, 5 boxes containing 5 secret miniatures, and 4 envelopes containing 20 secret game cards. If we take the lid off the box, the first thing we are presented with is a card insert that tells us to stop. This card tells us exactly how to get started without ruining any of the surprises. You know, just in case you were going to excitedly start ripping into all the envelopes and boxes to see what was in them. Which I would never do, obviously. Next is the 20-page rules book. Honestly, it didn't need to be 20 pages. The rules are incredibly verbose even for relatively simple concepts, and they include massive unnecessary images. Look at this, a whole page to tell you that you need almost everything from the Talisman core game, immediately followed by another page effectively repeating the setup instructions from the core rules with another huge picture of the board. In terms of actual new rules, you are looking at around 6 pages, but at the back of the rules there is an in-depth spoiler-filled explanation of each of the 5 trials that make up the Fate Beckons narrative campaign, plus instructions for resetting Fate Beckons after you've completed it so you can play it again, and a list of the components from Fate Beckons that you can combine with your core set for future competitive games, which, of course, I will be going into in my spoiler-filled video later. Moving on, under the rules book we have a single punch board. This contains the Doom track and tracker token and a bunch of strength and craft tokens. These tokens are not for use by heroes. As the Doom track advances, new villains arriving on the board become more powerful, and these tokens are used to indicate how much of a boost they get to their base stats. For example, once the Doom tracker reaches step 5, any new villains will gain a +3/+3 token. The Doom track is an essential new component for co-op play as it acts as a timer. In a regular competitive game, the players are their own timer. As soon as someone starts to push aggressively to reach the centre, every other player has to match that energy or they get left behind. However, in a co-op situation, only a Doom track can stop the heroes from circling the drain. The Doom tracker advances by 1 step every time a hero is knocked out, when a special event calls for it, or when a trial event is triggered, which usually happens when a villain card with the Doom icon is drawn or discarded. At first, Doom powers up the villains, making them a significant threat to the heroes, but once it reaches the 10th step, it becomes a death sentence. Heroes can no longer heal or gain lives, and they lose 1 life at the end of each of their turns. This gives them just a few more turns to save the day, or it's game over. Beneath the punch board, we have a neatly presented card insert containing 5 boxes holding our secret figures. There is a trial card with the special rules for the first trial, 4 sealed envelopes containing new cards, some of which are rewards for completing a trial and some of which are required for the next trial, and finally 29 new game cards. There are 11 spell cards comprising 8 new spells designed to complement cooperative play by encouraging players to help each other and sometimes, interestingly, sacrifice for each other. There are spells that let you set a dice another player just rolled to any value for the cost of 1 life, that let you send your gold or followers to another character anywhere on the board, or that let 2 characters swap places. Really interesting stuff. There are also 18 new adventure cards, 1 new object, 2 new events, and 15 villains. Villains are a major part of this expansion as they are rival characters hunting for the heroes and controlled by a very simple AI. We will learn more about them in a moment. When it comes to actually playing the game, you are, for the most part, playing regular Talisman, but with enough twists, I think, to breathe new life into the system and make it feel like a new way to experience this world. And the concept is relatively straightforward. There are 5 trials. In each trial, the heroes must find 2 talismans and place them at any 2 different places of power from a choice of 4: village, tavern, city, and chapel. Why are these places of power? Don't know. Once you have done that, you unseal the Portal of Power, which will flip a trial card and reveal your final objective. Complete the objective and you win. To get started, you first have to remove 10 spell cards from the spell deck. There is a specific list of cards to remove. It's basically all the stuff designed to hurt other players or protect yourself from other players. You then add the 11 new spell cards from the expansion and shuffle the deck. Then you have to remove 26 cards from the adventure deck. Again, there is a specific list of cards to remove, including particularly strong enemies and stuff designed to slow you down like the marsh and the maze. 2 of the cards are talismans, but those will be added back into the deck in a moment. You then add in the 3 adventure cards from the expansion that aren't villains and give the deck a good shuffle. Next, you shuffle all of the villain cards from the expansion and draw from 2 to 4 of them depending on the number of players. Each villain has a starting location where they should be placed. You then separate your adventure deck into 2 roughly equal stacks. In one stack, shuffle in 2 talismans and 9 villains. In the second stack, shuffle in the remaining villains. Then put stack 1 on top of stack 2. In this manner, you are guaranteed to find the 2 talismans by the midpoint of the game, and unless you are monumentally unlucky, you should have them both before the Doom tracker reaches the 10th space. This should keep each game carefully balanced on a knife edge, and you should find yourself under constant time pressure, which is exactly as it should be. To finish setup, place the Doom track by the board and select your characters. Then shuffle the purchase deck from the core game and deal cards equal to the number of players, replacing any rafts. These cards are starting equipment you can distribute to players as you see fit. Finally, take the trial card for the trial you are playing and follow the instructions on the side labelled sealed. As I said before, there are 5 trials in total and you should attempt them in sequence. But it should be noted, at the start of each new trial you will lose any objects, followers and stat increases from previous trials. You can even pick a new character if you want to. The only strand of continuity comes from the narrative itself, and a few bonus cards are sealed in the envelopes you get to open as you progress through the trials. So, don't expect an amazing and intricate new campaign system with robust leveling and scaling threats. This isn't that. For the most part, the rules for the cooperative game are the same as for the competitive game, but there are several major differences. Obviously, heroes can't attack each other now. However, if they are on the same space, they can team up in a fight. In effect, when you are rolling your dice to fight, any other heroes can lend their strength or craft as if they were a follower, although they aren't allowed to use their own objects or abilities. The risk is, if you lose the fight, all heroes involved in the combat will lose a life. Another major difference is that fate is now a shared resource among players. To create your pool, every hero adds their starting fate, and then you remove fate tokens equal to the number of players. What's left is the maximum size of the fate pool for the duration of the game, and if you are ever directed to replenish your fate, you can add up to 2 fate to the pool as long as you don't exceed that maximum. The benefit is that any player can access the fate pool for whatever reason. However, you can only use 1 fate token per turn for the entire team. So if you use a fate token to move, nobody else can use a fate token for the rest of that turn. It really forces you to think carefully about fate, when and how you use it, and how to make sure you always have one in the bank when you need it most. It's a huge change to the dynamic of the game. Those lucky characters with high fate counts are still valuable, they add considerably to the fate pool, but they can't lean on that fate the same way they would in a competitive game. It completely changes how they operate. The final change to the flow of the gameplay is the most dramatic. It's the inclusion of those villains. There will be some in play at the start of the game, and every time you draw a new one, a trial event occurs. These events are specific to the trial in question and are printed on the trial card. For example, in the first trial, the event advances the Doom tracker by 1 space, and then every villain on the board activates. Each villain will move clockwise around the board, moving up to their movement value in the region they started in. However, if there are no heroes in their region, they will move to the next region to continue hunting them, and if they should move into a space with a hero, they will immediately end their movement regardless of how far they have left to travel. Then they will attack. The loser in such a contest will lose 1 life, and should the hero take a villain's last life, they can claim the villain card as a trophy. This adds an interesting new threat to the game, shifting hazards that will circle the board and gradually close in on the heroes. You can choose to ignore them on your turn. Even if you land on them, you can simply interact with the space instead, just as when sharing a space with a player character. But if you ignore them for too long, the board will fill up with increasingly powerful enemies that will eventually bunch together and destroy you. It's a pretty neat idea. But that is effectively it. You move around the board encountering spaces, searching for talismans, and trying to stop the villains from getting out of hand. Sometimes you will lose. No worries, you just reset the current trial and try again. But eventually, you will place talismans at places of power, revealing the final objective, which is going to involve fighting a super powerful adversary that's immune to spells. Kill the adversary before the Doom tracker bleeds you out, and you win. You open the envelope and the box for that trial, marvel at your rewards, and then move on to the next trial. Rinse and repeat until you've completed all 5 trials. And yeah, at first blush it seems like a solid implementation of a cooperative system for a game that, for me, never really felt like it would work if played cooperatively. There's some clever stuff in there. The shared and restricted fate pool is going to become a focal point for endless debates and complaints, and the villains are a suitably imposing and impressive force to deal with. I'm not convinced it's a playstyle that will hold a player's interest for too long. Talisman is always at its best when you are giving the other players grief. But the expansion is only 5 scenarios, and then you get a bunch of stuff you can add into your regular games of Talisman, which has a lot of value in its own right. My biggest complaint at the moment is that the story, at least the opening narrative, doesn't really give a strong enough reason for rivals to band together. There is vague talk of the forest being quiet, merchants closing their stores early, and shadows lurking in the darkness. But the main driving force for the team-up seems to be the portal to the centre of the board is dormant. It all just seems a little bit too nebulous at the outset. Something more immediate and obvious might have made the team-up seem more necessary. But that is a nitpick. And that, I think, is it from me for now. Talisman Alliances is available for pre-order right now from various retailers and from Hasbro Direct. I'll put some links in the video description for you. And as always, if you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.